All right, welcome to the Buffalo Plus page presented by BuffaloPlus.com. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. Brandon Beane doing some business this week as Beane restructuring Stefon Diggs' deal. Mike, what do you make of it, why he did it, and what that can mean for the future for Buffalo?
All right, so what he's doing, look, Beane is great with the cap, but he's doing what a lot of general managers do. They're sort of, I'll use the old phrase my dad used to use all the time, robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're talking about cap money here. So what he's doing with Stefon Diggs' contract, you never heard that one, Dan?
Oh, that's new. That's good.
Is what he's doing is it's moving money. So if you're Stefon Diggs, you're sitting at home and all of a sudden there's going to be a check coming for $11 million. That's what's happening because it becomes a signing bonus. So why do you do that? Well, it pushes the money to this year and future years so they can spread it out as a signing bonus. And this is all for cap reasons. Like Stefon was going to get that money this year.
Correct.
But now it's for cap reasons. Some of that money gets pushed out. So they've got some cash, Jenna, in front of them. And Dan knows he's got $7-8 million to play with now. The question is, what does Brandon Beane want to do with it?
Yeah, instantly my reaction is I thought of Mike and I thought of his boy because he is the president of the Buffalo Bills Zach Ertz fan club and that he's going to reinvent everything again. And because you instantly think of that because that was one of the things I said was that the deal wasn't going to get done for Zach Ertz because, Ertz is owed $8 million this year. Mike always said you could restructure that, yada, yada, yada. This actually opens up, makes that much more possible, whether they would still have to give up whatever it is to the Eagles to get him back. You also look at number 2 corner. Sean Nelson's another name I've heard thrown out there. I've also heard, Richard Sherman and Brandon Beane. We were all thinking that he was going to draft a corner high in this draft, and he didn't. Waited till the 6th round. But then after the draft, he's like, well, we're still looking. Hey, there's still a lot of time. And so this kind of is that spending money. But another thing I thought of, Jenna, was just the fact of Josh Allen. And I know people are going, well, it's not really saving you money. I see what they're saying. It's also just saving some money this year. You could just save it, right?
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't know anything about that.
What?
I guess in theory, Mike, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's also, look, if they were to do the Josh Allen contract now, you could put some of that extra money on this year's cap, right? This is what they're going to do. Put some of it on this year. It's going to be a lot in every year in future years. Can I go back? I know I don't like to talk about this. I want to circle back to Zach Ertz. Okay, I know you guys want to hear this. Here's what I'm telling you about Ertz. A couple of things. One, the Eagles may end up cutting him, okay? So then you sign him to a deal. And maybe that's more palatable to the Bills, whether they want to just sign him to a 1-year deal, whatever it happens to be, if they do. The second thing I want to tell you is I see people saying things like, the Bills don't use their tight ends that way. You know why they don't use their tight ends that way? Because their tight ends can't catch, right?
Yeah.
They don't have anybody that catches the ball at that rate. They haven't for years. I mean, they thought they had it in Charles Clay. Like, they just haven't. Zach Ertz is a guy who has put up numbers after numbers. He had a lousy year last year on a lousy team with all kinds of issues. He's 30 years old. I know he still has at least a year, if not 2 or more, left in him. So what I'm saying is sometimes people say, you give up. Yeah, do they give up a pick? Maybe not. Maybe he gets cut and he comes the Bills' way. Maybe they look elsewhere. He would be a big, big upgrade at the position. And if you have a guy with his skill set, you use him more. Who knows how to use guys at different skill sets more than Brian Daboll, right? Give him Zach Ertz. He's going to use him like Zach Ertz. That's the way I look at it.
No, and I agree. And jumping off of that, Mike, I think when you look at when Josh Allen first became the starter, it was like, okay, he needs to have receivers. He needs to have a solid offensive line. Like they've checked those boxes, but really he's never really had that top tight end type of talent that you talk about. And thinking about the way Brian Daboll could use Zach Ertz, for Bills fans, I totally understand why there's that thought process of that would be fun to see. And also that leadership piece, because while there are a bunch of leaders on this team, he's a guy that can continue to build that culture and continue to develop some of those tight ends, like a guy like Dawson Knox, that you see all that potential, but sometimes it doesn't always translate on the field. So they're going to have options, Dan.
Yeah. Well, and the other option too that we haven't talked about, and I guess it's because it's one of those things where I said it's definitely not going to happen, but it would be really cool if it happened, but it's definitely not going to happen, but it would be if it did happen, is Julio Jones. I mean, again, they would have to eat, the Falcons are going to have to, The Falcons are like the Sabres with Jack Eichel right now. Julio says he's simply not going to play for them, and they're going to have to get rid of him for 50 cents on the dollar. So it's a matter of, some people are saying that the Falcons have turned down a first-round pick. Some people are saying that they were never offered a first-round pick. Julio Jones is still only 29 years old. I think we tend to think, because he's been around for so long and has been such a dominant wide receiver, that we think he's 35, 34. No, that's Emmanuel Sanders. So for as excited as some Bills fans were for Emmanuel Sanders, if this somehow freed up enough money, they would still need to make more moves to free up enough space for Julio Jones. But it is the fact of the possibility of, hey, maybe this move is made for a reason. I truly believe that. I don't think he's just going to sit there with $7 million.
You're right. You're right on most of what you said, except you're wrong on one thing. Julio Jones is going to be 32 this year. He's going to be 32 in February, right in time for be playing with the Bills from the Super Bowl. He's going to be turning 32. The question there is, how much would you give up for him? Look, if he was on the open market and you sign him, can you imagine the Bills going from what they were with, Popeye's biscuit tight end with the Giants as their number one wide receiver to now having Stefon Diggs and Julio Jones and Cole Beasley and all these guys. So yeah, they could use again. Oh, what do you do if you have Julio Jones and Stefon Diggs? Really?
You figure it out.
What do? You throw the ball to those two guys, right? Is the case. But the age is an issue only in terms of, his money. Now again, much like Zach Ertz, he's been a guy that has played and played and played, and then last year went through injuries. So you start saying to yourself, is this the beginning of the end? And is it a question? But Dan, to your point, could it happen? Would it happen? You sound a little like Romo.
I don't know, Jim. I'm not sure.
Okay,
and
well,
also,
let's talk about... Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, just one last thing. Something that started today and ended today was the other thing we heard that kind of took over Bills Twitter was the fact of Star Lotulelei was going to retire. It was going to cost the Bills $8 million against the dead cap. Then a video came out of Star working out, looks real thin, looks real agile, doesn't look like a guy that's planning on retiring anytime soon. And all of this freaking out about him not being at OTAs, that quickly went away when one video, like a 13-second video surfaced, and everybody's like, oh, he's not retiring. That money's for something else.
Yeah, it's good to see him back.
Gotta love Twitter and how it works. Also, shout out though to the person who replied to your message, Dan, or your quote tweet, and said that looks like are we sure that's not Star's younger, thinner brother?
Hey, there's always the possibility. Maybe there's the possibility this year Star lines up as pass catching tight end. You never know, right? So these stories could all come together. Yeah, I mean, look, they are. One thing Beane does is he sets himself up with options. Yep. With the cap. That's what he's attempting to do. Again, at this point now, Jenna, you got a lot of good players who are getting paid. A lot of people. Look at what they've done. And there's guys coming up that are going to get paid. And Diggs is too. Like they're moving his money around right now, but he's not getting more. He's just getting it earlier. So at some point they're going to extend him. Because that's the thing that when you talk about restructuring that money, that everybody goes, oh, it's so great. Saves you money in the cap. Like, oh, what a brilliant thing. It's like, yeah, in the short term it does. In the long term, it makes things more expensive. Like this isn't just like a fantasy money. Yeah. It's more risky when the player isn't going to be around in the long term. That's not the issue with Stefon Diggs. He's going to be around the long term. But that's a future problem for Brandon Beane. Like he's going to need to figure out something to do with Diggs in 2022 and 2023. At the time being, he freed up $7 million more in the cap. Yeah, and I think it's going to help. It'll help now. Work, folks. Yes. Well, they do need the money. I mean, they do need some cap space. And the other thing you got to keep in mind, they haven't signed Greg Rousseau yet. I mean, there is not that they're not going to sign the number one pick, but there are teams. The Atlanta Falcons are one of them. I don't think at the moment the Falcons can sign their draft picks. Yeah. Like their cap is a disaster. So now, some teams have maneuvered around that a little bit to get it done. Now, they will all get it done. There was a time they need to get these guys signed, but some of this is just... Now, that's another thing we could see with this $7.5 million. Just a little more space, get these deals done, and then you see what you've got left there. And I don't know if there's other moves still left to be made. I mean, keep in mind, there's moves that could be made during training camp too, right? Guys who are not on the final roster, maybe on that defensive line, since we've drafted 14 defensive linemen in the last 3 years. So we'll have to wait to see what they end up doing. So, yeah, it's important.
There's plenty of options. I was say there's plenty of options ahead for Brandon Beane, and we know he'll sort them out. For joining us today, thank you to Mike and Dan, and thank you for watching us here on Buffalo Plus on the YouTube channel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have more content later this week. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.